Welcome, everybody. We'll give everybody about 30 seconds to ensure that everyone has entered the room that would like to be here. And, all right, everybody's pinned. We are good to go. So, welcome to Networking and Social Media, telling your story through personal branding. I am thrilled to introduce our two distinguished presenters for today's session. First, Elizabeth Ann Moon, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Stony Brook University Graduate School. Elizabeth oversees the comprehensive marketing strategy for all graduate events, services, and initiatives using both traditional and digital methods. For 8 years, she's combined her passion for higher ed with a focus on elevating departmental branding across both student and academic affairs. A frequent presenter at professional conferences on the topic of higher education marketing, Elizabeth holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration from Iona College and a Master of Arts from Stony Brook, where she's also currently pursuing her MBA. Joining her is Dr. Stephanie Taboada, Assistant Engineering Professor at Suffolk County Community College and Adjunct Professor at Stony Brook, a former Center for Inclusive Education Turner Scholar and NSF AGAP Fellow. Stephanie was recently named an inaugural Climate Tech Fellow by the New York Climate Exchange. Behind her work as the founder of HiSEP, Stephanie is a dedicated researcher, consultant, and content creator. Through her platform at Engineering Ambition, she shares her academic journey and insights on applied energy innovation. Stephanie holds a PhD in chemical engineering, along with advanced graduate certificates in communicating science and science training. So please join me in welcoming Elizabeth and Stephanie, and I'm going to hand it over to both of you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you everyone for joining us. We're excited to have you here and talk about personal branding, professional branding, and how to use some digital tools in order to elevate that personal and professional brand. So I just want to quickly start with a quote, and my background is marketing communication, so I do a lot of work about branding and development. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is how you can take that approach and apply it to your own personal and professional brand, because a lot of the strategies and kind of tenets in branding apply to a person similarly to how they apply to a company or organization. So here's a pretty famous quote. It's, "Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room." And what that really means is your brand identity is not something you tell people. It's not something you shout out loud, but it's in your actions and how you show up in the workplace, how you show up in networking interactions, how you support the people around you, how you represent the work that you're doing. And it's what people are going to say when maybe you're not in the room. It's what they're going to say when they're leaving your presentation, or when they're leaving an interaction with you, or maybe they finish a project with you and your name comes up in a different conversation, and it's, oh, that person has such a great work ethic. She has such a creative application to how she solves problems. It's those phrases that they express about their interactions with you. So I want you to kind of call back to this quote as I'm talking about everything today, because it really is through your actions and how you show up in the workplace and the way you represent yourself in everything that you do, that feeds into what your brand and brand identity would be. So just a strong quote to think about as you're putting together all these elements we're going to discuss today. So getting into what a brand is. So what a brand is, it's a marketing practice to make something easily identifiable. And I'm going to show some examples in a second. But it gives people an idea of what to expect from someone. So when we're talking about companies and organizations, is it an elevated brand? Is it a quality brand? Is it an affordable brand? So there's different attributes and phrases that we use when we think about companies and organizations, or if we're talking about consumer products, when you maybe think about the last thing you purchased and what brand it was and what made you make that decision to buy that product. Is it a product you always buy? Were you trying something new because of a conversation you had with someone else? It's what something uses to stand out from something. If you buy coffee from a specific coffee shop, why do you buy it from that coffee shop? And this applies to individuals as much as it does with companies or an organization. So what makes somebody want to work with you in the future? Or when you're going through a recruitment process or looking at different jobs opportunities or research opportunities or academic opportunities, what makes someone want to work with you? Or what do you show up as to help yourself stand out? And that can be throughout the interview process in the way you kind of articulate your skill set. It can be the work that you present through different interactions through the recruitment process. So think about how brands differentiate themselves and how you can differentiate yourself from other candidates or other individuals in your field. Because it really is about what makes you unique. And as you continue to go through the academic process and job process in your future, you'll find that what helps you stand out and all the different experiences that led you to where you currently are what make you unique and are what make you stand out. And that's what you really want to stand on as you're demonstrating your skill set to others who may be in a hiring position or something similar. So let's think about what is included in a brand and what you think about when you're looking at different brands. So you'll see a number of logos on the screen from some pretty famous companies. I'm sure all of us can look at those, and even those that don't have their name necessarily in their logo, we're fairly familiar with what their brand identity is. And marketing companies and corporations do a ton and ton of research, investment, into making sure we think about things when we think about the brand. So I'd love for you guys to kind of like pick one of the ones on the screen and maybe put into the chat one of the brands and maybe something you think about when you think of that brand. So when you see those golden arches, what is something you think about? And one person may think one thing to another. So for one person, like if I look at the golden arches, I think about maybe my childhood and growing up going to McDonald's, and but maybe now you have a different kind of approach to it of what type of food is served there. And then if you look at Amazon, you may think about quickly ordering things. So yeah, I'm seeing some things for yeah, French fries. Rosalia, I love it. Disney is magic. Disney is family vacations. If you look at something Mercedes-Benz, you may think luxury, you may think expensive. So there's different words that come into our mind depending on our own experiences and how these brands present themselves in order to make you think about something so quickly the second you see that logo. So I don't need to say what McDonald's is. I don't need to explain what Coca-Cola is. You know, the second you see that logo on the shelf at the store, what you're getting and whether you want it or whether you don't. Because we've been trained over years and decades of our lives to think these things about these brands based on how they represent themselves. There are specific brands, and one of them would be Starbucks. And I specifically left it off of here, but if we can put in the chat, what color do we think of when we think of Starbucks? And I'm sure for many of us, it takes less than a second to think of, yes, there you go, green. Lisa, you win. And there are many brands like that. And that's definitely not an accident of how these brands do this. Starbucks is an example, and Target is an example. And there are many brands that are examples of brands that have the goal of consumers not having to see their name in order to understand what company or organization they're buying from. So there was a period of time several years ago, probably over half a decade ago now, where Target was doing specific ads that never had the word Target in them. It had the logo, but you never saw the word Target written. You never heard the word Target written. And that was because they were training their consumers. And I'm sure there's examples where you could go into a Starbucks and remove the logo off of all the signs and everything, and a person would still go in there and still be able to know based on the fonts that are there, based on the way the store presents itself. Even if you took all the logos, even if you took the color out, they do a lot of work to make you think that. And I know we're talking about product branding at the start of this, but I really want you to think about how you can identify some of the things these brands and companies do into your own personal professional brand in order to have that same present that same experience for those that are interacting with you, where when someone says your name, someone thinks, oh, they're really creative, oh, they have a really strong work ethic, or oh, they have a really great approach to this specific industry or field. So thinking about how you can apply these brand elements for companies and organizations to yourself and how you show up in different spaces. Okay. And what is a personal brand? So, what is the purpose of a personal brand? Why are we talking about that? Why is it important in the job recruitment process? When you're applying for jobs or applying for different opportunities, it's really about your experiences, your academics, your skill set. So, what is the reason for having a personal brand? Why don't we just put on our resume just the basics about where you worked, what you went to school for, what school you went to, what research you did. Why are we adding different elements to that to demonstrate the projects that you worked on, your approach to the projects, how you interacted with other people? Why do we have other application materials or other experiences that we want to speak to show who you are more in the workforce or in these scenarios? It's how you highlight those experiences that really helps you stand out. So on paper, 30 people could look exactly the same. There could be 30 people that have the same school that they went to, a very similar research experience, and just based off of those experiences alone by title, you wouldn't necessarily know how the person shows up in the workplace, what they're like to work with. Do they have good communication skills? Do they have good teamwork skills? Can they work well independently? So this is how you showcase your personality and how you're going to interact in the workplace to really help you stand out amongst those other applicants. I have the word authenticity on here, and I definitely want to highlight that because authenticity is so, so, so important. When you're in these conversations, in interviews and networking situations, it's really important to be authentic and speak to who you are as a person. Again, I keep calling on being unique and standing out, but your authenticity is what helps you stand out. And you want to speak to the things that you're passionate about. Um, Anyone go? I know I see a few people who maybe participated or maybe attended 3MT several weeks ago. One of the things I love most about that event is the passion that you see from the students and postdocs that are presenting. And what that passion comes from is authenticity. When you're talking about the research that you're doing, or if you're in job interviews talking about different experiences, your authenticity and your passion is what's going to shine through. And I call on 3MT because that's a great example of that passion and authenticity from those students and postdocs. And that's the same thing you want to represent when you're telling your story to others. So just keep thinking about that. Think about what drives you to do the work you're doing and tell that story. And that is what's going to make you stand out. So, what you stand for in your career and life is why you chose this specific field. And prior to working in the graduate school, I worked in the Career Center for several years. So I've done tons of mock interviews with students, and the ones that show that passion and the reason for why they're doing something. There's a great book by Simon Sinek called Start with Why. Starting with your why and sharing that story is really, really important and helps define your personal brand. And a little bit more about why personal branding is important and how it's important in different fields. So it's a competitive job market that continues to be an ongoing narrative. That's not something that's necessarily going to change over time. The job market will always be competitive, and the requirement of being able to identify why you're unique against other candidates will always be needed, no matter what landscape that we're in. So telling your story and kind of starting from the beginning and letting them know why you chose this career path, what drives you to continue to pursue this career path, will really help you with standing out. One thing I want to highlight today is industry involvement and becoming an expert in your field, and how that not only helps propel your personal brand, but also helps you develop your skill set and develop your network. So I think sometimes when we think about personal branding, we think about those that may be going into a business field or a small subset of fields and that require personal branding as part of the job search process, but it really applies to everything, especially over the last decade as we've seen digital marketing become more prevalent in the recruitment process and then the networking process with tools like LinkedIn, which we're going to cover. Representing yourself online is really important, whether you're in the STEM fields, the medical fields, humanities, social sciences, every single field. I'm sure many of you have seen these, depending on what industry and field you're in, has influencers online. And the ability to become an influencer or micro-influencer, and that doesn't mean the traditional sense of influencer of constantly posting content, but within your own space, being a participant in a digital conversation about your industry is really important to open up that industry involvement, to network with others, to find opportunities you may not have even thought were possible. The concept of being an expert in your field and being able to present at conferences or be asked to speak about a specific topic, a lot of that comes from the networking that you do digitally. I mean, the world has become very small, and I say that in a positive way in terms of you could network with someone that works at a school or works at an organization across the country and present a talk to a institution or organization that is in an entirely different state or an entirely different country. So a lot of opportunities are opened up from digital networking, but having some of these elements that we're going to talk about today in place is really important. And then I also wanted to highlight that in the job search process, over 70, and it's really closer to 80% of recruiters will review social media channels. So they're taking a look at your LinkedIn, they're taking a look at your platforms, they're seeing how you show up in these spaces, they're seeing how you care about these things. So I advise you to definitely be an active participant in those digital spaces. And it's definitely very important no matter what industry field you're in. So, how do you personally brand yourself? Where do you get started? So one thing is defining your audience. So who are you looking to connect with? And this will always vary depending on what stage you're at in your kind of career process. Whether when you're kind of in your early academics, you may be interested in networking with companies and organizations, but you also may want to network with peers within your organization, connecting with people that have similar backgrounds to you or have backgrounds that you aspire to. One activity that I often do with undergraduate students and graduate students is kind of creating your dream resume and creating a identity of what you want your career to look like. A really great quote that I like to use is your career is best written backwards. The kind of concept there is if you ask somebody at the beginning of their career, everything that they're going to do, they may have a dream, they may have their wish list, but sometimes it can be people get nervous about making the right decisions at the early stages of their career or making the right career choice or going down the right path. But if you ask somebody later in their career to tell their career story, they're not thinking about all those choices or maybe small mistakes that they made. Their story sounds really comprehensive and thought out as if they'd written it at the beginning. So kind of doing a mock version of that and understanding what your audience is in terms of where do you want to go and identifying those people as your audience to network with can be a really great starting point. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to find those people in a moment. Creating a clear value proposition. So what do you have to offer? What experiences have you had before that you think would be interesting to the audience that you've now defined? What helps you stand out? So we're going to write a few different statements throughout the workshop today, but challenge yourself to take a piece of paper or to open up a doc and write 1 to 2 sentences about what you have to offer. Similar to kind of an elevator pitch, but think of it more as a value proposition, tried and true of what helps you stand out, what experiences do you want to most highlight, and be concise with it. Like challenge yourself to limit the amount of words or characters that you use into something short that really identifies you and helps you stand out. And that's kind of like writing that brand slogan or introduction. If we look at some of those popular brands before, if you look at Apple, they think differently. If you look at Nike, you have just do it. What would your brand slogan be? Really challenge yourself to think creatively and kind of think outside the box of that, and then let that drive you. Let that show up in some of your application materials. Let that show up in your interview kind of language that you're using when they're asking you some of the questions. I'm sure many of us who have participated in job interviews before have gotten the question of, what makes you stand out, or why should we hire you amongst other candidates? Having a brand slogan to call on, even if you don't identify it as that when you're talking to the person, is a really engaging way to have a conversation with an employer or recruiter or interviewer and help you stand out and show demonstrate that voice for yourself. Creating a consistent email list. So we're going to talk in a moment about identifying contacts. Staying in contact with those people on a consistent basis is really important. Finding those professional organizations to network with, having those conversations, subscribing to different newsletters and engaging in those audiences, sharing that content, just being active in your industry and in your space is a really important strategy in terms of developing that personal brand and staying active in that personal brand, no matter what stage you are at in your career. Okay, and now we're going to get into some specifics about LinkedIn. So, we are going to be talking about some of the different elements of LinkedIn. One of the very important ones, or two important ones, are the headshot and the banner. And you'll see a screenshot on the right of kind of a breakdown of the different elements of LinkedIn. And when someone comes upon your profile, I'm sure we've all searched on LinkedIn before, you're seeing a few things first. So you're seeing their headshot, which I definitely encourage you to have a professional headshot taken. You're seeing their banner image, which I'm going to show you some examples in a second. And then you're hearing a little bit more about their career story, some words from them, their headline, maybe where they're currently working or studying. And then as you scroll down and start to get into the content, you'll see what they're sharing, what content they're engaging in. So that's why it's important to really stay active. Right now, we're going to focus on the banner piece and how that can highlight who you are, convey a lot of really interesting information about yourself. Obviously, you can share some specific facts or some specific experiences through it, but what you choose to be your banner is almost as important as what it is already, what it is in itself. So like if you chose a specific picture, so if you go to mine's a really great picture of Stony Brook because I associate my career really strongly with Stony Brook and the wider campus area. So that's something that's important to me. So the fact that I chose that is just as important as what is there. So think about how it can represent you, how it it provides like a professional look to your LinkedIn page, and what it tells somebody beyond what's already on your LinkedIn page. So we have a few different examples here, and we chose some different ones from different industries to give you guys some different context. So you'll see on the top left, we have Dr. Celia Marshak, the Dean of the Graduate School. And what she has on her banner is the graduate school team Christmas photo from a few years ago. It's a really nice landscape photo. And what is something we think this tells us about Celia, that she chose this as her photo? And we can put in the chat, or if anyone wants to unmute themselves, they can share. What do we think this says about Celia? Team player, working with colleagues. Exactly. It definitely demonstrates that she really values her team. She cares a lot about her team, that she's a leader. And Celia is my direct supervisor, and she's someone that definitely leads with her team and really values all of the work that we contribute to her. And this picture accurately and authentically represents that. So that says a lot about what Celia shows up at as work, as a leader, as someone who values her team, just by having this picture of all of us. And for some of the other ones that we have here, feel free to chime in the chat about what you think with there says, but just to go through them, so we have Anya, and what she has as her banner are a few accolades or conferences that she's participated in. So it represents kind of her level in her field. So we talked before about being an expert in your own field. This represents that and how involved she is in the industry, and it really demonstrates that professional brand for her. Jennifer Joe, we see on the bottom left, who's from Vanguard Health. We see it's a picture of her on stage at what looks to be a large scale conference. So it shows that she, again, is a leader. It shows that she engages in public speaking engagements. It represents her ability to network and engage her own industry. And it's a really powerful image because it's her right at the front of the room. We've all heard the expression, a picture says 1,000 words. Like this picture is really strong in sharing a lot more about Jennifer in terms of how she sees herself as a leader, how she sees herself in her industry space by how the picture represents her on stage at the forefront, being at the top of her industry. So I think that really says a lot. And then Jean Clifford from Brookhaven on the bottom right, we see it's some elements that come from BNL, Brookhaven National Lab. It's some branded elements that show a few different kind of mini scenes, show it associates him really closely with Brookhaven National Lab. It represents a few different types of research or work areas. But again, it really tightly links him to his work because it's a brand image from the organization that he works for. So these are four very different style banners from four different people from four different industries, and they all tell really positive but different stories. So think about that as you're putting together your banner. And I wanted to just highlight there are a variety of different tools to create your banner depending on kind of your background. But I wanted to highlight that Canva, if you go to Canva and just typed in LinkedIn background photos, or even if you go to Google and type in LinkedIn background photos, some of these have the premium version needed for it, but many are completely free. Or you can even start with a blank template and you could have a quote on there, you could have some commentary on there, you could have a photo on there. So if you wanted to design something specific, you could do so, or you could just choose a photo that makes sense to have cropped like that. If we go back, you'll see like all the photos that people chose are those wider photos that wouldn't be cropped weird in that banner style image. But I just want to highlight that if you wanted to design something custom or have some content or words added to it or a few different images, Canva has a lot of different templates for LinkedIn banners. So definitely highlight that. Take a look at your LinkedIn. If you don't have a banner yet, definitely implement that because it really helps the page become more professionally branded. Okay. The next kind of feature on your LinkedIn platform underneath that headshot, which again, we won't talk too much about headshots right now, but I definitely encourage you guys to make sure you have headshots. But right underneath that image will be your headline, and that'll include your name, your job affiliation, your field. It's custom to what you want to have there, but those are like the really important elements that you want people to see as like one of the first few 5-second things that they're going to see when they look at your profile. So for myself, I have my job title and where I work, in the field that I work in, which is marketing communications and higher education, because that's one of the first things that I want people to see. If you're at senior career where you're pursuing your degree and you're potentially looking for work opportunities coming down the line soon coming up soon, that would be something that you want in there. Looking for opportunities or open to conversations about XYZ, whatever industry field or topic area that you're interested in. So you want this to convey kind of your goal or what stage you are at currently in your career in order for someone to know really quickly when they look at your page, okay, there's their name, there's their headshot, there's their background image that tells me a little bit about them. I'm going to get into the other content in a second and see more about them. But oh, they're open to networking and talking about the developments in AI and how it affects biomedical engineering. Oh, I'm interested in that too. Let me continue to read further. So think of this as a way to get someone to continue reading and learn a little bit more about you in a quick few seconds. The about. So the next is the about section. And I think many people think about this as a bio, which it can be, but I encourage you all to be a little bit more creative and not do a traditional bio that you may share for like a departmental website or a official publication and have it showcase your personality. And we've seen the word personality on these slides a couple times, and that's because I really want you to think about how that applies to your work and how that helps background, but not necessarily just your resume bulleted. There's a place on LinkedIn for underneath there for you to outline all of your experiences and have content that speaks to your resume. But I really want it to be more of a story about who you are, and why you chose this career field. So was there an experience that you had, or at what point was the passion created for you to pursue the field that you're in? Another thing you can include in here is your expertise. So is there a specific piece of equipment that you're really knowledgeable about, or a specific research field that you're really knowledgeable about within your industry field? You definitely want to highlight those pieces of what is your research about, or what does the work you're doing on a daily basis really pertain to, and highlighting those pieces. A great way to do that is through examples and stories. So instead of, for myself, saying, oh, yeah, I really like marketing, it would be better for me to tell a story about how I use marketing to improve higher education outcomes or help support programs recruitment or tell student stories more, which is something I'm really passionate about. I don't just do marketing in higher education. I get to tell student stories and highlight the opportunities that we help them to identify and find. So telling more of those stories, sharing more examples, allows people to relate to you as they're reading your LinkedIn. It allows you to gain more interest. So let's say you tell a full story or even part of a story. Now, when someone wants to reach out to you, or if you reach out to somebody, they have something to go off of and continue that conversation based on the story that you shared. So the last piece here I want to highlight, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, is that hook and call to action. So first, I'll start with call to action. That's how you finish off your about section. So if there's a specific topic you'd love to have a conversation about with people in your network, you can say, get in contact with me if you're interested in talking more about this piece of research or this article or something that pertains to the work that you do on a daily basis. What do you want people to do immediately after they look at your LinkedIn profile? Do they want them to contact you for a conversation? Are you looking for work opportunities? Are you looking to volunteer in different areas or get more experience in different areas? That's what you want to highlight in that call to action. Then that hook, which is one of the most important parts of your LinkedIn page and your about section, is what encourages people to read your about section. So they've seen all the elements we've already talked about. Now, what makes them want to read your about? And I'm going to show some examples of some hooks that I really like. You'll see some of my favorite ones are showcased here. So in the middle, the person has a it's a software developer, and her first sentence, which is written on purpose, broken out from the rest of the content, so it really stands out, is I caught fire coding. And that sentence it's short and sweet, but it engages me to want to continue to read on because what a strong way to say that you're passionate about coding, or what a strong way to demonstrate what interested you in code, like that the feeling that you had when you became interested in coding. So the alternative to this could just be, I became really interested in coding when I took a coding class in high school, or something similar, but I caught fire coding is way more engaging in terms of encouraging me to want to read on. And you'll see on the right, the human brain is a crazy place. And there are two things that fascinate me most about product and growth marketing. Now, a few things I love here. The human brain is a crazy place. It's a strong sentence. It's got some really strong keywords in there. Human brain is interesting. Crazy place is interesting. It implores me to want to read on. But then she says there are two things that fascinate me most about products and growth marketing. What does that do? That makes me want to know what are the two things that fascinate her most about product and growth marketing. And I want to continue reading on. So I want you guys to think a little bit, and we'll give you a moment, and we're gonna have you on this slide if it comes up. There we go. You can scan the QR code or type that link in and then that code, and add in what your hook would be. Or if you have a hook currently, you can share that one. Or if you, we're going to give you a minute or two just to kind of take a second to think about what your hook would be. You can put them in the chat too, but we're going to try this little interactive feature so they can come up for everybody. What would be that first sentence? So don't think too far. After this session, we'll have you guys think more about that about section, and I encourage you all to write that full section. But just in this moment, think about what that hook would be and how would you engage someone to continue reading on to the rest of your hook? What would be your catchy first line? And we'll definitely want to share like one or two at least. So I encourage at least one or two of you to definitely type something in either the QR code or the chat. And this is where you're all putting your storytelling hats on.
I don't know if it's just me, but it's not loading,
It's not?
unfortunately.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like my Wi-Fi is just slower right now for some reason.
That's okay. We can use the chat feature. If anyone, if I can get like one or two people to put theirs in the chat, and you can take a second to think about it, but think about that like catchy first line that you would have as I was talking. People are my people. I like that a lot, Lisa. Very nice. It tells us a lot about how Lisa engages with others in the workplace. It tells me that she's collaborative. It tells me that she's a team player. And we didn't talk about this beforehand. This is the first time I'm seeing this sentence, and those are the quick things that come to my mind. Would problem solve for free. I love that. It's catchy. It tells me that this person is a problem solver. It's witty. Would problem solve for free because it's a clever sentence. So I like that a lot. Very nice. Let's see one more. One more catchy one. Creative troublemaker. Interesting. I like that. That definitely encouraged me to read on and find more about this person's experience and how they would show up in the workplace. So that's great. Thank you for sharing those. Definitely continue to put those in the chat. And we'll share these slides with you. So those bullet points about the about section. I definitely encourage you guys to write out your full abouts. And if you want to share them with Stephanie and I after this, we'd love to review them and provide any feedback if you have any questions or want to go back and forth and kind of brainstorm on those. Happy to do that as well. Yes. There we go. Perfect. All right. So now quickly just to talk about networking and reaching out on LinkedIn. So here are a few screenshots. I'd like to always highlight that LinkedIn is a great networking tool. We know it's a professional social networking tool, but the concept of networking, I'm not sure if everyone understands. There's a lot of different ways to identify different people, and it's not just by searching people's names who you know in your field. There's ways to find people that you may not have interacted with yet. So one really great feature that I love to show people on LinkedIn that I definitely use myself is you can search any organization, any company, any school, any brand that has a page on LinkedIn, and you'll see I search for Natural History Museum on the left, and what you'll see on the tabs is home, about, post, jobs, people. If you go to people, you'll see a list of schools here. You'll also see that this is from my point of view. So there's one school alum works here. So that means it's someone that went to the same school I went to, which Stony Brook was the one that came up here. An alumni from Stony Brook works there. And then if you see on the right, we Brookhaven National Lab, again, same thing. I go to people under Stony Brook University. You'll see there are hundreds of people that work at BNL that are associated with Stony Brook. And in this screenshot, I clicked on Stony Brook, and underneath people you may know, came up, all of those people that have public profiles and attended or interacted with Stony Brook University in some way. And why this is great is because you can go into the filters further if there's specific job functions that you're looking for, or you can just start from here and search for different job functions that you may relate to. And you can start cold networking with people. And I really encourage you to. I've done this a lot in my career, and it's only helped me in terms of learning more about what I want to do or finding different opportunities or learning about different professional organizations. I find it to be a really helpful tool that I always encourage students to take part in because then you can connect with them and you have one piece of common ground. And you can do this in a variety of different ways. Maybe Stony Brook's your connection, maybe somewhere you did research is your connection, maybe somewhere you worked is your connection. Maybe your hometown is your connection. There could be a variety of different things, but I find you can cold network with anybody. You don't necessarily have to have some commonality, but I find it can be really helpful to take a look and say, "Oh, hi, I saw you graduated from Stony Brook in 2011 with the same degree that I have and are now doing a job that I'm really interested in. I'd love to learn more about your career, or I'm not sure what I want to do with my career, and I'd love to set up a virtual coffee chat to learn more about maybe how you got to this point in your career." I think that's really the pinnacle of what you can do is set up a virtual coffee chat. And I definitely encourage and challenge you to do it with a few people. But another really great benefit of it is it's really great research. Maybe you have some career goals in mind that are 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and you have an idea of how to get there. You think maybe you need a certification or a specific experience. But like I said before, our careers are best written backwards. So you're not exactly sure what that sitemap looks like. Getting to look at a few different examples of people who maybe went to the same school as you or had similar experiences as you in these job functions that you aspire to, you can then see all of the experiences they have and create kind of like a hybrid roadmap of what to do over the next 10, 15 years. And again, everyone's story looks different, but it gives you some idea of, oh, this person had this experience, or I thought I needed to do XYZ, and I looked at 10 people who have similar jobs to what I want, and none of them had that, so maybe I don't need to do that. But I think having that conversation with these folks is really beneficial as well. So, um, I encourage you guys, again, we'll share these slides after the session to identify 3 companies and 3 contacts. And within the slides, we also have a template of a message that you can send them on LinkedIn. So when you connect, I always encourage people to send a message as well. And this is just a template kind of approach of introduce yourself, share a little bit more about yourself, acknowledge where your connection lies with the person, and ask them for a moment of their time or the just the general connection or specific advice that you're looking for in order to start that conversation. And I encourage you guys to maintain that connection too, is if you have a coffee chat, continue to reach out to them over the course of your academics and career. So this is a really great networking tool in terms of identifying people digitally. And this is a great intro to some features you can start using on LinkedIn. Again, we'll share these slides so you'll have these templates and things to work with. And if you ever want to go back and forth on content, I'm here to have those conversations. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie. And she's going to go into kind of the part 2 of our telling our story presentation. And I'll stop sharing, Stephanie. I'll let you share if that works.
Yes, that works. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So it says sharing is not turned on, send request. I guess I would send it to you, Lisa, or I don't know.
If you request
Okay.
it, I think I was gonna say you got it.
Yes, I
Okay.
just got it. Okay. Let me just move this over. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So, hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Taboada, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about branding, but from a different perspective. So, as a researcher, professor, it's very important. I'm assuming most of you want to go into academia. So to use personal branding to advance our career, but from a scientific perspective. So previously, we would publish and, hope that someone would come across our content and cite it. But now there's a lot more amplification of this research going on. So I'm assuming most of you are active on like Instagram or Blue Sky, Twitter, so many different social media outlets. So we're seeing a lot more science communication. There's a science communicator in particular that I like to follow. He, for example, takes all of like probably one of the most interesting content I've ever read and really breaks it down into sizable, understandable bits, like pieces for everyone to understand. So he's amplifying this content and he's increasing the impact. So it's not just within your, department. It's not just within maybe the few people who go to your conference session that are reading it, but it's, being amplified now to thousands of people. So this is the value of social media, branding, and this is really the impact. So those of us who actually share our research on like social media, so like LinkedIn, what Elizabeth was mentioning, all of our research can actually see a huge increase in citations by about 34%. So that's really big, especially if we're interested in like going to national lab or going for like an R01 professor, position. Citations is pretty important, right? Because the higher our articles are cited, the more value kind of brings to our name. Again, going back to personal branding. So, what does this look like? So, besides just research, a lot of PhD students, professors, I see on social media, they're documenting not just their science, but they're talking about like how they're doing their research. Even just documenting like their career, like what does a day behind the life of a professor look like, or what does the day of a scientific researcher at Oregon National Lab look like? So you see people documenting not just the successes that they post, but also like the failures. Maybe they got a rejection, the unpleasantness behind research as well. And all of that kind of helps to get the audience engaged because it's authentic, which is again something that Elizabeth mentioned. You want to bring your authentic self to social media because that's really what people, they can kind of sniff it out if someone is not being their true self. So you can talk about all of this. You could talk about your journey. You can talk about, how you organize your lab schedule. You could talk about how you organize your um, maybe your planner, your weekly planner, whatever it is that you do. People are interested. Like they want to understand how you got to, pursue a PhD in anthropology or in history. Like how did you get to that point, and how can they do it too? So all of this helps and it builds an audience. And eventually that audience, we're going to get into monetization towards the end, but your audience is really, they're the people that are going to talk about you. So for me, a brand is the way that someone describes you when you're not there. So for me, my brand that I hope people mention is that I'm hardworking, that I try to do as much as I can, and that, I'm dedicated to climate research. So that's the way that I hope my brand comes across. And if, you have an audience that you're building on the social media platform, whether it's LinkedIn or, like I said, Blue Sky, all these people can help to amplify that. They're going to be your sources of, you could say, opportunities. They're going to connect you with people. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So on that note, I wanted to ask you a question. Let me see if I can pull this. Okay. So what would you post if you wanted to become a, build your brand? Okay. You're on social media, maybe you're on LinkedIn. Like what would you post? I gave you a few ideas. I said you could document the messiness behind your research. You could document how you organize yourself. You could document any successes, any rejections. You could document what you're planning to do. So what would you post? Why don't you share with us? So if you scan the QR code, it should allow you to type in exactly what you would post. And if not, you could also share in the chat if that's easier. So student of the past working for the future. Oh, is that from the previous? Okay. Learning through the process. Okay, perfect. Failure is the best teacher. Yes, agreed. Yeah, and I think it also helps to kind of show everyone that, you know, pursuing a PhD or doing anything really is it's not all, rainbows and butterflies. It's hard work. I feel like we get more rejections than successes than acceptances most of the time. Yeah, managing disappointments. Okay, exactly. Yep. Sometimes even talking about like mental health. I've seen some social media content creators, they talk about like their mental health during their PhD program. And that resonates with a lot of people because so many, as most of you know, so many people struggle with their mental health throughout this process. Okay. Maybe we'll get one more. Anyone else? Closed doors show a new direction. Yes, I love that. Very true. Yes. So all of that, like if you were to post it, let me tell you, it resonates. It really does. Okay, so good. All right, so let's keep it moving here. Let's see if I can, how do I, now that okay. Looks like I have to exit out of that. All right. So what are some content formats? So of course, Instagram, like you're welcome to post like a few pictures of yourself. Videos are really big. I don't know if some of you are millennials like myself. I did not grow up in the video, film everything generation. So I'm a little shy when it comes to filming myself. Um, but I have no problem taking pictures or taking pictures of other things. But if you are, great with the camera and you love filming, definitely that's a huge way to build your brand. Podcasting is another way. And something else that not many people, I think, speak about is guest posting, so guest blog posting. So this is actually a post from a researcher. Her name's A.D. Ken, and she's a well-known science communicator. So she posts a lot of like guest blog posts on other sites. So if you want to gain like credibility or if you want to get your name out there, really reaching out to a few different outlets, and I have some on the next slide, is a great idea to kind of bring some notoriety to your name. Okay. And then content format. So, in order to actually be successful on social media, it's recommended to post at least once a week. The reality is it's even more than that. You really should be posting once per day, ideally at the same time. But if you can't manage that because, we're all busy, at least once a week would be ideal. And again, around the same time. This is because once you start building your audience, they're going to expect, they're going to be waiting for your post. They're going to say, oh, this is the time that so and so usually posts like an update on their life. And, believe it or not, people, they want to see it. They want to read it. They want to see what you're up to. So here are some sites where you can actually post, like as a guest, like your thoughts, your opinions. Scientific American is a little bit more upscale, so I don't think I would start there. That would be more once you've built like a name, like a brand for yourself. The equation is actually from the Union of Concerned Scientists. So they're willing to usually take on a guest blogger. Rockefeller Institute of Government, they are our state think tank. So I actually have a post on there myself when I was a PhD student. I won this competition. I'll talk about it a little bit later. And then from that post, believe it or not, I got contacted by like newspaper outlets. I got contacted by a few people just because my name was on the article and like my research was there, but my research was not, it wasn't in a how do I say this, in a published journal. It was like on the actual website. So that made a huge difference. And then another place where you can get your foot in the door is called the National Science Policy Network, NSPN for short. So if you go to their website, you could find so many resources there. They have like a bunch of sites where you can publish your work, and that one is really, I would say, low effort. You don't really have to um, like reach out to the publisher or kind of like, pitch your story. They'll usually accept most PhD students' opinion pieces, right? Because it's on your research. And then, believe it or not, Stony Brook has their own blog right from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. So I actually have a certificate from them, and they reach out to me and like a few other previous students constantly asking for us to post content on their site. So they would, I'm sure, love to hear from all of you and just hear about like your research. I understand they might have a podcast now as well. So even just being like on their podcast, puts your name out there, right? And it's part of Stony Brook University, which is a well-known, obviously R1 institution. So you can't go wrong there. Now, I wanted to share this tool with you because this is also from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. It's called Just a Minute, JAM for short. So whenever you are preparing, whether it's a presentation, a blog post, an opinion piece, anything, this is really like a great place to start. So you start from the top left, from the goal, and according to the Alan Alda Center, you want to have your audience either think, feel, or do something. So you want them to think, maybe about your research. Maybe you want them to think, oh, this is awesome. Maybe you want them to do something. Maybe you want them to invest, or maybe you want them to raise their hand at the end, whatever it is. But the purpose of this exercise is to understand who your audience is. So you really have to dig deep into, like what are their interests? How do you relate to your audience? And then you kind of go around the circle and you say, well, why would they care? Why would they want to care? Why would they care about your research? Knowing what you know about your audience, and then what obstacles are you facing? So whatever it is that you're trying to get across, maybe it's your research and you don't know how to simplify it down. There's like a lot of jargon, which is, complex words that not many understand. So how do you address that? So one way to get past that is through analogies. And then you can also relate to your audience. So you can, for example, find something that you have in common and kind of start off talking about that, establishing some common ground so that they're more open to discussing, your research topic or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So understanding your audience is huge. Okay, so I would highly recommend using this tool, and I'll share it with the CIE so they can share it with all of you as well. So what does this mean? This means that once you present yourself authentically, you're consistent, the idea is that you're going to build a audience that will want to listen to you. They'll want to reach out. This will create some form of loyalty. And also in terms of like the algorithm on like LinkedIn or any really social media outlet, they're looking for that. They're looking for any piece of information that's consistent and authentic. Authentic being the key word. Now, this is just my own personal experience that I was talking about. So this is the blog post that I have up on the Rockefeller Institute of Government. So you can see here, my name is there. And whenever you search for this, my name comes up. I also have like a YouTube, it was a presentation that we did. Again, this is on YouTube, so I get like a lot of feedback from this. So I get people who reach out to me, which is great. That's exactly what you want. And then a few other things that I've done, which I would recommend for all of you to get involved with, is pitch competitions. So Stony Brook just started one, I believe it's called Brook, if I remember something Brook. Maybe some of the participants there can remember. Oh, I got a chat. Oh, okay. Um, something Brook. I don't remember what it's called. But it's something with Brook in it. Anyways, I'll look up the exact name, but it was there. So whenever you participate in pitch competitions, that also brings like attention to who you are. Whenever I've participated in those, like I've always come out with some sort of collaboration. My first pitch competition, I actually met a mechanical engineering professor at Stony Brook University who I now teach with, I collaborate with. We've had an ongoing working relationship for at least, I want to say, 3 or 4 years now. So you never know who you're going to meet. And then the other part of this is you get to meet other like founders. So pitch competitions usually are for people who have some sort of tech that they want to kind of like spin out into a company. And so even if you don't have one now, and this is something that you're interested in, it's great to even just go and network because there's so many programs out there that actually can connect you with, for example, a tech that's at a national lab. And that tech can be licensed to then become a company. So that's how a lot of this work that I'm involved with happened, just by going to pitch competitions, meeting people, and learning about all of these opportunities. Okay. So now that we've spoken a little bit about social media, so social media is great for grabbing attention. Okay, hopefully you'll post something about your journey. Maybe again, like we mentioned, how you organize yourself, whatever it is. But eventually, the idea is for you to not just have social media. You want to be able to have your own platform. And that's where you start to differentiate yourself. Because remember that social media can be taken down at any time. Facebook can decide tomorrow, oh, we don't like, any posts about climate change. We don't like any posts about this topic, and it all comes down. And there goes your audience. Okay. Or maybe they'll, decide that your account, for some reason, needs to be, canceled. And that's happened to a lot of content creators. So what you want to do is build your own platform. And what I recommend is to start a Substack. So you've probably heard of Substack at some point. If you haven't, well, you've heard of it now. So it's Substack, and it's free. So it's basically a place where you can just kind of throw your ideas out there. Obviously, do it in an intentional way, and I'll talk exactly how you can start writing. Another option is to use WordPress. So WordPress is kind of the equivalent of like Word, Microsoft Word for bloggers. But that one, I don't know if I would start with just yet. I personally would start with Substack, and I'm speaking from experience because I had a WordPress blog, and you have to pay for it. So Substack is free. I recommend Substack, and then eventually, once you build a larger audience, you can move to a paid version of a blog. The reason you would do that is because once you have a larger audience, your Substack might not be able to handle that much volume. So you have to move to a blog and like pay for service that can actually handle that many people visiting your site. And then, of course, you can use LinkedIn for credibility. So posting on LinkedIn, but not just like, a video or like a picture of yourself. I'm talking about like actual articles on LinkedIn that discuss, what your expertise is in. Okay. So once you have that blog, you're building credibility. It doesn't matter what social media, what anyone else does, because you're going to have your audience there. It's not going to go away. So now, how do you become searchable? So you want people to actually find your content. So that's where SEO comes in, so search engine optimization. And SEO plays a huge role. So everything from the way that you describe your images, like the captions, to your LinkedIn posts, the headlines, like all the titles in your articles, all of that counts for SEO, the hashtags. So how do we optimize this so that way when people search for you, you will pop up, or search for your content, better said, that you will appear? So I'm going to go through an exercise and show you. We're going to use Google Trends and Google Keyword Planner. And I'm actually going to share my computer screen now. Does Substack have an email newsletter feature? I believe they do. Yes, they do. Yes, if I remember correctly. And they also have paid subscribers, but we'll get to that in the later slides. So let me just show my stop sharing for a second, and I'll share my computer. Okay. Okay. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen. And here we go. All right. So Google Trends is great. And you can use this for like your own research. So Google Trends, it's literally just trends.google.com. And I'm gonna just copy and paste this link here. Let me send it to everyone. Okay. So once you go there, you can actually just type in, let's see, explore. We'll go to explore, and we can add like a search term. This is basically determining how searchable is your specific content. So, can someone in the chat give me like maybe one of their research topics? Anyone? Cilia. Okay, let's try that one. I have no idea what that is, but we're gonna try it. Okay. Is that looks like it's this one topic. Oh, no, not wrong one, wrong one. Cilium. Okay, cilia. Okay. Search term. Okay. So here we go. You can search and see exactly when it looks like there was a huge search for cilia in what day? Somewhere between January 3rd, January 10th for some odd reason. Um, you can also, this is just over the past year. So this is from April. We can actually search for the past 5 years and for since 2004. So I just changed it. And now look, I can see like a better trend. And the reason you want to do this is because whenever you post, whether it's on LinkedIn or social media, you want to post kind of like around the time when your topic is like being searched the most. This is because you have a higher chance of actually being found. Okay. Um, Now, the other part that I also want to show you is you can compare. So, anyone else want to give me another word here, another research topic in the chat, maybe? Diversity in higher education. Okay, cool. Diversity in higher education. Let's see. Let's do search. So it's going to search for precisely that word. So yeah, you can actually compare like how much your like the two words or however many words it is that you're planning on writing about, um, which one is searched more than the other. So it looks like cilia is searched a lot more than diversity in higher education. If I think this is also very much like it's too specific. Maybe if we were just typed in higher education, we might get a better uh reading. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. So higher education now is better than cilia, has like is more searchable than cilia. And for some reason, there's like a huge spike here from January 30th to February 28th, 2026. Interesting. So you could see that. And so, yeah, this is great. It's a really great tool. And you can also, if you scroll down, you could see other like trending words that are related to this. So like what is cilia? And you see how there's like a percent change. So this is referring to there's like a decrease in what people are searching. So for you, I would recommend finding if you have to be very specific, let's say you're writing your research paper, you're writing a post, like for example here, cilia flagella, looks like the search interest is higher and there's like an increase here. So this might be something to consider writing about or even just mentioning in your research paper or your post. So you could do this for a lot of different topics, and you can add as many words as you want here. You can also suggest search terms. So yes, great tool. Uh, Another one that I wanted to mention is the keyword planner. So if you go to Google Ads, and I'll just type it in here, if you're logged into your like Gmail account, I'm currently logged into mine. So you could see it here. This is my Gmail. If I type in Google Ads and I just click, I believe it's this one. Let's see. Yeah, this one. So if you go to Google Ads and just hit sign in, you're going to reach this Google Ads page. Now, I don't think any of us have any ads going on right now on any of our sites, but if you do, good for you. Uh, this is mostly for people who, are trying to purchase ads for their specific site. But for us, we're using it for their keyword planning tool. So where do you find that? You're going to go to Tools, Planning, Keyword Planner, and we're going to wait for this to go. Okay. And you see here, this is such a powerful tool. Honestly, like I love it. You could type in any word and it actually even gives you suggestions. So let's take a look. Let's see. I'm going to hit discover new words. So I'm going to type in the same word that I was provided. Ooh, I know, yeah. Um, let's type in cilia. Did I spell it right? Silia. Okay. Oh, not that one. Cilia. Okay. So, and I can also type in another keyword. So let's type in higher education. Oh, maybe I can only do one word at a time. It's like cilia. Oh, it's not even working. Looks like I have a lag on my computer, I think. Oh, there we go. Um, Education. Let's try that one. Okay. Let me see if it allows me to do both higher education. Yes, it did. Okay. So let's do cilia and higher education, and then let's hit get results. So now what it's doing is it's literally telling me the average monthly searches for these words, but it also gives me so many other words like phrases beneath it. And it tells me the average monthly searches for those like phrases or words and the 3 month change and the year-over-year change. For all of us, like obviously we want to be found on SEO, like through SEO. What I would recommend doing is clicking on the year-to-year change and changing it to so that the most searched words come up, the highest increase in words year over year appear first. So like you see here, this is an increase in a monthly searches year over year by 9,900%. And the average monthly search is 100 to 1K. So that's not a lot. If you're trying to, you know, focus on building an audience, you want to, find at least, I would say, somewhere between 10K to 100K. The higher, the better. And unfortunately, for these words, we're not having a really great year over year change. So I'm going to change this to something else. I'm going to get rid of higher education. Let's just try cilia and see what we get. Uh, let's see, year over year change. Nothing. All right, so that's not a great word to use. Maybe there's something else. So I'm going to use something like solar energy. Um, and let's get results. Okay, so now for solar energy, I got a lot better results. And you kind of have to play around with it until you get something like this, where you can see like a huge increase or a relatively large increase in the year-over-year change. And you also want a high search volume here. The other really key piece is your competition. So this is showing like how competitive is the space to write in. So you want something that's like low to medium, but that still has like a high year over year change and a relatively high monthly search volume. This is how you actually can attract readers, and you're going to build like your own little niche audience. And having that niche audience is like the key to growth, especially for like monetization. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. I will share ads.google.com. That's the site. Okay. All right. And let me go back to my slide here. Um, okay. Let me close this. Okay. Now, other ways to become like SEO optimized, we call it, is you can use AI. So you can use AI just to generate like keyword ideas. So if you were to type in AI, this Cilia, AI would give you like a whole bunch of other keywords. You could type that into your keyword planner and see if any of those result in like a higher year over year increase in like monthly searches. As long as it hits like those three parameters that I mentioned, low competition, high year over year change, and like a relatively large number of monthly searches, you're in a good spot. Okay. You can also use AI to draft, brainstorm. I would not use AI to write your content because if you use it, the SEO, like Google, may actually flag it and you know, you won't be able to your content won't be found, basically. You're going to start to rank lower on the content scale. Okay. So what has happened with AI, and this is worth mentioning, is you really have to include a human perspective whenever you write something. So that could be, writing about what happened to you. Like if you're writing about a conference, like how do you network at a conference? You could talk about it from your perspective. Like how do you specifically network at a conference? What do you do? How do you prepare yourself in the morning? How do you get yourself in that mindset? Okay, so you want to have that human perspective. All right. I want to see. We only have about 17. Oh, we have a few minutes left. Um, I have a lot more. So I had an exercise here for you to use with your Google Keyword Planner. I think I'll see if we can come back to this. I want to get through the rest of the presentation. Okay. All right. So let me move on here. Okay. So let's go here. So your anatomy of an engaging post. So like Elizabeth mentioned, you want to have a hook. Okay, so you want to have something, some statement that attracts an audience, but you want to make sure that whatever you write in your hook is SEO optimized. Okay, so you want to make sure that whatever word is in there, it has a high search count so you can get that audience and you're not wasting your time writing something that no one is searching about. The other part, anytime you write, you want to make sure there's limited jargon. Okay. If it's too complex for, me, if like I don't know what silly is. So maybe that's not a word to use. Maybe you want to explain it a little bit better. And that way your audience knows. Or it could be that you're targeting a specific audience and you won't have to do that. But if you're trying to reach a broader general audience, I would definitely explain that. And then you want to be careful with your hashtags. So whenever you post, try not to have too many hashtags. That's when the algorithm will kind of lower the searchability of your post. And then, of course, a call to action. So The best thing to do is refer them to your site. So whenever you have a post, if it's on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is that you're using, you could say, read more about this at my site. Click on the link in my profile above, something like that. Network tag. So always tag the institutions, assuming that it's okay for you to do so. You want to tag your co-authors. This will bring, like for LinkedIn, whenever I tag or, I do something related to like funding, for some reason, LinkedIn will then immediately pull up like a whole bunch of grants that I can apply for. Like it just becomes part of my algorithm. So I would highly recommend doing that. And obviously, whatever it is that you're searching for, write about it. Visual assets. So you want to include some sort of compelling image. It's okay to use an AI generated image, but again, that goes back to authenticity, right? So I would try to keep it authentic. And if you have to use an AI generated image, that's okay, but try to keep it authentic as much as possible. Okay. Now, for my own personal experience, so I have my own social media account. I'm pretty active. Back when I was a PhD student, I was through my social media account, I was actually offered to interview at a college in California. It was called Harvey Mudd, and I actually never went, but I had really had no interest in working in California at the time. That's where they're located. But that was very interesting to see that social media can potentially, get you job offers in academia, no less. And then I was also reached out to by the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So when I was a PhD student, they invited me to be part of like their graduate committee for our specific northeastern region, which was pretty awesome. I got to meet like a lot of other social media creators and students from, institutions across the Northeast. So like from Virginia Tech, from Northeastern, a lot of, it was great. And then they actually ended up paying for my funding to go to the SHIP conference, which was great. And then because of the Climate Tech Fellowship that I recently finished, again, that was also another huge like social media um, output. So I had a newspaper company. It's called the Beacon. They reached out to me to highlight my work that I've been doing. So that's great. The article should be coming out soon. So this is again just like all of my experience and how I'm hoping you all can use this as proof that you can leverage social media to expand your opportunities, to expand your network. So now I wanted to go through monetization. So I'm assuming we all like to make money here. So how can we make money off of this? So Substack is pretty great. So once you have a dedicated amount of followers, like it doesn't have to be huge. You could have like your own little niche that I mentioned. And assuming they are, loyal and they keep coming back to you for content, you could easily charge like $5 a month for whatever it is that you're writing about. Courses. So again, you see a lot of content creators creating these courses and offering them online. As PhDs, we all are, experts in our field, and we're more than qualified to offer courses to help others. So you could charge at least a couple of $100 per person for your specific course, whatever it is that you're trying to offer. And then this is the part that will generate even more funding for you is Google AdSense. So Google AdSense, they are a specific program where you have to have at least like 50 unique posts on your blog. And Google will, run through it, they'll analyze it, and then determine if you're eligible for having their ads on your site. So if you have like a relatively, large number of people coming to your site and they click on these ads, For every click, it's like a couple, maybe you could say like 50 cents here and there, but that adds up once you have, a couple thousand readers. So there are people who, just live off of Google AdSense because their platform has grown to such a large amount. Okay, and then there's service-based income. So, for example, in my case, I still consult. There's speaking engagements. So, a lot of like digital creators now, that's one of their main forms of income. The way to grab a speaking engagement is actually to apply. So, conferences will announce, that they're going to have whatever it is, their annual conference at, in October, blah, blah, blah. They're looking for a speaker. So you can apply to be a speaker and you will typically get paid for that. And then once you start, engaging in these conferences, more and more people will automatically start to reach out to you and they'll say, hey, we saw your speech at such and such conference. We'd love to have you speak at our conference. What is your fee? And you can usually charge a large amount of money for that. I've seen people charge anywhere from like 5K and up. Like it's crazy. Workshops, same thing. So you can easily have your own workshop. It's like could be like a 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, amount of weeks that you want and charge for that. So, for example, for us over at Suffolk, we were talking about having like workshops, industry workshops to train technicians, engineering technicians on like specific engineering theory that they probably haven't covered. So this is to kind of train them, right, to have them learn and grow and understand what they're actually doing at their job. So this is like all of the different ways that you can monetize, right? And then, of course, if you're interested in academia, and even if you're not in academia, you could still apply to grants, partnerships. All of this can lead to funding for you. Okay. And then other fun perks of being, in social media, growing your brand are the free perks. So I am what's considered like a micro digital content creator. But despite that, I've still gotten like free perks. Like occasionally I'll get like a restaurant that reaches out and they'll say, oh, we'd love for you to come and, document our food or whatever and post it on your site. And, I'll be able to eat for free, something like that. So those are like free perks, and like the more followers that you get, the more perks. So that's a little plus. So how can you actually do all of this? So on site, Stony Brook has what's called the Small Business Development Center, and they're a government-run institution. So they're all over the country. We're lucky to have one right at the R&D park. And if you scan the QR code, you could actually sign up and meet with one of their business advisors, and they can help you, set up your website. They can give you tools, literally everything that you need to get started. Like they'll even do the research for you on like how, what website you should use, what should be your content strategy, all these things. I highly recommend reaching out to them. I've had conversations with SBDC on a few different matters, and they've always been super helpful. And then there's also the NSF I-Corps program. So this is over at Stony Brook University. So for those of you who want to, you could actually turn your brand into like a nonprofit or a for-profit company. So that is an opportunity that Stony Brook offers for you to explore. And if you scan the QR code, that takes you straight to the I-Corps site. We're actually wrapping up a program on Thursday. So I'm one of the teachers there, and we provide somewhere between $1,000 to $3,000 per team. So if you want to join on your own, that's perfectly fine. You can do that, and you can get that funding for what's called customer discovery to understand if your nonprofit or your for-profit idea is actually viable. Okay, and then this is just kind of like what my plan is. This is what I do on a regular basis. So I write grants, I consult, teach, research, startups, And now I'm focusing on building my Substack. So eventually I would like to get subscribers, maybe some paid subscribers, and then eventually move that Substack over to WordPress where it's going to live. And I don't have to worry about social media eventually taking down my content. And of course, I would love to incorporate Google AdSense because why not? You know, it's free money through advertisements. Now, a few trade-offs, and I know that I'm almost at time and I will be wrapping up shortly. So you are in the public eye when you are, posting everything about your life. So you just want to be careful and you want to think, um, whenever you post something, is this post going to impact me negatively in the future? So always think twice before you post something. Make sure that it's, a post that you would be okay with your boss, your family, whoever it is seeing that. Okay, because once it's posted, you can't really delete it. It's always going to be online. So here's your 30-day launch plan. So, find a social media platform that you feel comfortable with. Clean your house. So go to LinkedIn and follow the steps that Elizabeth suggested. Obviously, use your SEO optimized keywords. And then think about, what you're going to post. You can post like, again, 1 to 2 times a week. Try to keep it consistent. And then I would highly recommend just reaching out to other similar creators that are in your space, because the more that you comment, the more attention that'll bring to you, to your brand. Okay. And that is it. I don't unfortunately have time to go through your monetization strategy, but hopefully what I provided was helpful. Okay.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much to Elizabeth and Stephanie. Do you both have a minute or two to take any questions if anybody is available to stay on and would like to ask some questions?
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
Um, if anybody would like to ask a question, either I'm trying to, let's see if I can see everybody. Either raise your hands or put a comment or a question in the chat box. Either way, please let us know. We will be sharing all of the materials that were shown today. So the presentations, and Stephanie, yes, if you send us that one pager, we can share that as well. And the recording will be added to our YouTube channel. Any questions or thoughts, comments? I just want to take one more check in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. Wait, let me just make sure. Yep, extremely helpful. It was absolutely extremely helpful. So thank you. But if anybody else has any questions, thoughts, no? Okay, then we're gonna let you go for the day. Thank you for joining us. Stephanie and Elizabeth, once again, this was fabulous. We thank you for taking your time out of your busy days to join us and to present. Lots of useful information. I learned some new tools and tricks myself, so I appreciate that. And have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to